In the early 1500s, Michelangelo painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, and it's speculated that Michelangelo painted God as a human brain. It kind of looks like a brain. At that time, they knew that the mind was connected with the brain, and somehow Michelangelo knew a lot about human anatomy, and so the chances are good that that's actually what happened. But I've also been told consistently by postmodernists that this message that he was trying to convey by painting God as a human brain, it was a secret message. That I'm not so sure about. Because the postmodernists would say, ha, see? Michelangelo was saying that human culture creates God. He was secretly postmodernist. But that I know for a fact is false because his inspiration came from Neoplatonist Christian philosophy. In the 1580s, in England, Giordano Bruno wrote the works which would become our entire modern cosmology, all by himself. Not Copernicus, not Galileo. Bruno was eventually burned at the stake by the church. I've been told consistently that Giordano Bruno was a martyr for science and astronomy. But I know for a fact that that is false because his inspiration came from Hermetic Christian philosophy. Bruno was not a scientist at all, and he looked down on science. He was kind of a Christian, but the reason he was burned at the stake is because he was also writing about the similarities between the Christian religion and the ancient Egyptian religion, and he preferred that, and he was pushing that, so that's why he was killed. He's not a martyr for science, he's a martyr for the ancient Egyptian religion. Again, in the 1580s, in England, John Dee was developing the basis for most of the Western secret societies and intelligence agencies with something called Enochian vision magic. But again, as a devout Christian scholar, his inspiration came from Neoplatonist and Hermetic Christian philosophy. At this point, you're probably saying, oh, these are not real Christians. I wasn't taught this in church. What's this Neoplatonism and Hermeticism? What's that? I wasn't taught that in church. Of course you weren't taught that in church. We're talking about educated people. Educated religious scholars since the entirety of Christianity have been viewing Christianity in a monist light. I could go on endlessly dropping names of Christian scientists and philosophers who believed in some form of Christian monism, like pantheism, panentheism, or panpsychism. Yeah, one of those things. Still Christianity. Man, starting with the assumption that everything in the Bible is truth. Man, I wish it were that easy. But you might be saying, oh, Eric, magic is evil. Like I'm some shady character in the alley saying like, hey kids, you want to buy some monism? Deuteronomy 18:11 discourages contacting the Methim, which is Hebrew for the dead people. And I think somewhere in the Bible it says that dead people can't communicate anyway. So, but anyway, John Dee and anyone else in one of these Christian secret societies, will tell you that, well, they're not trying to contact the dead. Okay, they're contacting angels. And their methods include a lot of prayer, like hours of prayer. And I'm pretty sure they pray more than you. And they can tell you exactly what an angel is. They don't view it as a substantial entity which travels through portals from another dimension. They'll tell you that they use consciousness altering techniques, methods, to access a higher level of consciousness, whatever that means. Basically, it means that they cause hallucinations in themselves and they acknowledge that fact. And the word hallucination is very controversial, and it's controversial because if you think dualistically, the idea of a hallucination threatens your faith. But these people are not thinking dualistically. They're thinking monist. And, well, in Revelations 1:1, right off the bat, it says that God sent an angel to John, the Revelations guy. So every Christian agrees that angels exist in a hierarchy, in levels. And every Christian agrees that there are thousands and thousands, maybe uncountable or unknowable numbers of angels. And many of them are at the bottom, and only 2 or 3 at the top. In Matthew 18:10, Jesus mentions angels corresponding to each person, and people have named this concept guardian angels. And if you're a Christian in secret society, it makes sense to you that Jesus would be knowledgeable about such a thing, and it could explain Jesus, incarnation of God, because through angelic forces, a human has a link with the heavens, or the link with God. They're the messengers of God. God rides on the back of angels. And you might say, we don't know how many angels there are because we don't know how many humans there are. You know, the number of angels could correspond to the number of humans. Or, something around there. Who knows? In Luke 17:21, when Jesus was asked when the kingdom of God will come, he said, "The kingdom of God is within you." 1 Corinthians 15:28, God will be in all. Colossians 1:17, He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together. You might be saying, oh, Eric, these people believe that they're gods. No, So there are some beliefs which advocate mocking God or advocate worshiping the fulfillment of physical worldly desires. And there are some religions which say, oh, a human being is a god, and that they mean that in the most literal physical sense. Okay, this is not that. This is all that this is saying is that there's a connection between angels and people. Angels are an attunement or a conglomeration of humanity somehow, or all of life. The New Testament in many places refers to demons as spirits and says that they can enter a person and affect their mind. Some examples are Matthew 12:45, Luke 8:30, Acts 19, and Luke 4. and probably a whole bunch more. But in the Old Testament, it doesn't specify such spirits as being demons, but it does clearly say that they originate from God.